What's going on, guys? Today we're talking about transferring your VA home loan to your kids. I get the question often enough to make a video about it. I probably get the question at least every day. And the range of veterans that ask is people just getting into the military to people being out of the service for 20, 30 years. Especially some of the older veterans that are out there thinking from a life estate planning purposes, what can I do? So it's a little bit tricky. So let me walk you through it. It's definitely possible to do. Okay. So the way you could transfer your VA home loan to somebody, the only person is going to be your spouse that can actually receive and use your VA home loan as if it was their own. Now, there's going to be a couple parameters you need to factor into this. One of them is that if the veteran passes away while on active duty, right? It doesn't have to be combat related. It could be an accident, but if they're on active duty, then they will be able to use the loan solely themselves. Or if they pass away from a service-connected disability, then it goes to the spouse, you fill out some paperwork, and boom, you have that piece. Now, if the spouse is on the mortgage and the veteran passes away and it doesn't relate to the prior two things, then the spouse still keeps the property until the loan is paid off. And if they then qualify again to use the VA home loan, then they can use the VA home loan as they fit. And also know if they have a service-connected disability, the veteran did, and they do pass away, sometimes the spouse can actually get the same tax, real estate tax exemptions for their property. So those are all things you want to definitely do a lot of research about before you go into that home buying process. And the most important part is to get your certificate of eligibility, and it will be under your name, your social. And then that way you can get at least any paperwork that's needed squared up well in advance. So then you're not messing around with that. Now let's talk about where the magic is for doing how your kids could actually assume your property. So I'm going to walk through a couple different scenarios, or at least I'm going to explain what the program is that you can utilize and then how it works. So all VA home loans are assumable. What that means is that if you have a VA home loan, like I'm a veteran, and let's say I have a son that's 30 years old, he can actually assume my mortgage and lock my benefits into that property, and then actually be the owner of that property and still keep a VA home loan. Will he be able to use it again? He will not be able to use it again, but at least for the property that I have with the benefits that I have can be locked into the property. The way an assumption works is that a veteran or a non-veteran can assume your mortgage. A veteran looking to use their entitlement and do what's called a substitution of entitlement. That's where you put your benefits on my property. I free up my benefits to use another VA home loan, right? That's a substitution of entitlement. A non-veteran can assume your mortgage as a primary residence, as a second home, or as an investment property, okay? So a couple things with that. If you're thinking to yourself, well, why would I give up my home loan? Again, it's going to really be dependent on your financial situation, where you're at in your life, and what you're trying to plan for the future. Okay, that's primarily where this piece is, because you can still have somebody on the title of a mortgage, but if they're not an actual mortgage holder, then they have to refinance, get a regular mortgage, and if they may not qualify for that, there's a lot of things that go behind that piece to that. But that's why I mentioned if a spouse is on the mortgage, then it makes it a lot easier. It's also a conversation people have all the time with their spouses. Do I put them on the mortgage? Do I not? If you put them on the mortgage with a VA home loan, it is beneficial because then they'll actually be able to keep that VA home loan when you're not around. And there's also a lot of insurance products you can get for a mortgage in the event something happens to somebody. Then you're actually able to execute on an insurance policy that will actually pay off the mortgage. So those are just some things to keep in mind for that. So let's kind of go back to this investment property piece. This is kind of how we normally see it happen. A veteran will have their child assume their mortgage. Now, they still have to qualify for income, credit. If they need any assets, they will need to have that. They don't need to sell it at a profit. So if the home is, let's say the mortgage, house is worth $500,000, but the mortgage balance is $200,000, you could just have your child just assume the $200,000 component to it. It's still considered a sale, so you're still gonna have to pay transfer taxes, closing costs as they apply for your area. They're just gonna be reduced most likely because your mortgage balance is gonna be a lot lower. So you have that piece. They still have to qualify with a minimum credit score, and every lender is going to have a different requirement. And when I say lender, here's a caveat. It's the servicer of the note holder. So let's say you have your servicer is Bank of America, for example, or Mr. Cooper. There's a million of them, Freedom Mortgage. Then that's actually who you contact to start that process, and they will handle it. Sometimes it's a painful process, sometimes it's quick, but really they're around 3 to 6 months to complete, so keep that in mind. So a lender is going to request that they look at their credit, they're going to look at their income to make sure that they can afford it. And if they're buying it as an investment property, then actually they can use rental income to qualify for the purchase of that mortgage, which is also pretty unique for that product, right? So sometimes maybe somebody doesn't have enough money to be able to afford that payment right now, but that's why you can offset it with an investment property by using that additional income. So the caveat, so the challenge with something like this comes, right? If I remove myself off a title and I'm the veteran that gets a property tax exemption, well, what happens then? Well, typically what people will do is they will assume the mortgage from their parents, and then they'll put their parents back on title after they close through what's called a quick claim deed. And then they can get their exemption back on the property, and whatever they're eligible for property tax breaks, they will be able to get. I think it's awesome that they can do that, but you definitely want to explore by contacting your servicer and go through that. Another piece to this is that sometimes veterans will be like, man, it's a great idea, but then, what if I want to move, if I want to do something? Well, the thing is that once that property is sold, you get all your entitlement back. So obviously this requires a lot of trust within someone. So let's say you have your kid, they assume it, and then you had a big life event or change in circumstances. You're like, listen, we got to move somewhere warmer. I don't blame you. Then basically you would have your child sell that property and you'd get all your entitlement back to purchase another property. And on top of that, assumptions are unlimited assumability, right? So if someone assumes my mortgage today, in 6 months, they could then have someone else assume it and have someone else assume it. So again, there's a lot of benefits to it, especially if 2, 3 kids. They could all 2, 3 of them could go in together to assume that mortgage. Again, it's pretty awesome. And that's why it's also super important for children to understand budgeting and credit as in general, because there has been instances where we try to do this exact situation, but the children are not able to actually purchase or assume the mortgage because of their credit or not properly budgeting, which at the end of the day is going to affect your credit. So I hope you guys liked the video. Hit the like and subscribe button to check out more content like this. I'll catch you guys soon.